thing is going to be fundamentals, and we've really got to get better. You know, you go back and have a chance to study what you did well and what you didn't do well, and really what it got down to in most situations is fundamentals and communication. And we've got to do that from a coaching standpoint. We got to make sure that our players have the tools to go out and compete on Saturday, and that starts in the weight room. And I think they've done a good job in the cycle in the weight room. Now what we got to do is focus on fundamentals. To be quite honest with you, right now, unless we move quicker than I think we're going to move, we're not going to do a lot scheme-wise. But we're going to work on technique and fundamentals. Once we do that, then the scheme will build itself. And so that's kind of what we're looking for.
Chief, the one thing I've always been watching your defenses is you've always had the great ability to build, around the strength. It seems like your defensive line is going to be pretty stout. Talk about them and how much will you lean on that veteran group?
Well, it's important, and really that's where you want to be. If you're good up front, then that gives you some flexibility and some things that you can do on the back end. And if we can stop the run with less people in the box, then that gives you some flexibility to build on coverage and not have to play so much man to man. It's important, and we focus at that position too in terms of recruiting. We're a little bit number-wise, we're a little bit heavy there, but that's going to pay off dividends down the road.
Talking about some of your younger kids, Devin Bush, Greg Brooks, Stoley, and those guys that were able to come in, early and get into the spring ball. How will that help those guys and the defense as a whole?
Well, two ways it's going to help those guys. Number one, they've already made that transformation from being at home. Now they're away from home, and let's just tell the truth. We can remember when we did that. It wasn't easy. It takes some time. Some kids adjust, quicker. Some kids it takes a little bit longer. But they've already adjusted, and they're exposed to the conditioning that they got in the off season. That's a big plus. Then they're going to be exposed now to spring practice. So they're going to be so much farther ahead than, some of the freshmen that come in August or come in June. So it's a good head start. They've already put in a lot of work. They're going to put in a lot more work. But the biggest thing is that transition. It used to be a long time ago. You showed up when you started football practice. In August or whenever. And, guys were getting homesick. Back in Tennessee, we used to call it the I-40 blues. You could hear those suitcases going down the stairs late at night. They were headed to I-40. They were getting out of there. But they've already made that transition now, and that's good.
Talk about Scooter. He seems to be he's going to be that defensive leader. How much will you put on Scooter to be the leader of that group?
Number one, we've talked about that. It's not just something we're going to put on, and we've talked about that. And I think he really wants that role. And he was the leader for us last year, but now it's probably in terms of the guy. He's probably the guy on our defense right now. And let me say this: if we can get everybody playing at the level that Scooter's played at, then we'll all be happy.
Ryan leaves. Who are going to be the guy?
Welcome in. It's our February 22nd edition. It's our A edition, as we like to do it each and every day, each and every Friday here on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And, we let you came in with a little audio from the Chief, defensive coordinator, linebacker coach John Chavis, as we had availability with all assistant coaches. And we'll let you hear more of our talks and our one-on-one sit-downs as Demetrius and I sat down with new defensive line coach Kenny Ingram. You'll hear the scuttlebutt from what Kenny has to say about his excitement here at Arkansas. Also, too, you'll hear Coach Justin Stepp, wide receiver coach, his theory on recruiting and just how he thinks his room is going to look in the coming year. And also, too, you'll hear defensive back coach Mark Smith. He, too, also will talk about what they look for in the recruiting and just things about some of the young guys and how that room in the DB part's going to do. But Demetrius want to come in with my producer, co-host, demigod around these parts. What did you take from yesterday? We had a lot of sit-down. You had the availability with Joe Craddock as well. What was your take from the assistant coaches heading into spring ball a week from today?
They just really talked about getting back to the basics. That's what everybody seemed to be preaching yesterday, going back to technique, going back to just the simple things, not so much physicality, not so much actual football, but actually going back to the fundamentals, the footing, the spacing, just basic fundamentals of football.
I know when we had availability with Jeff Traylor, he mentioned the move. Jordan Curtis, former running back at Jenks High School, will be moving from defensive back here at the University of Arkansas over to the running back spot. Now, when you look at that, Rakeem will be out due to his off-season surgery. This has to be a pretty good chance, with Devon being out. You would think Chase and those type of guys will be able to step forward and get more, don't you think?
Definitely. Guys like Devois, I think it's going to be good. Coach really mentioned that those guys didn't really need to be out there because they've really been through those trenches, and Rakeem was the one that they really wished was at camp, not for the simple fact that he's the best running back, but that he just needs to brush up on those little things, just those simple techniques. So I really think it's going to be good for those older guys, though. I think it's going to be get them into comfortability. I think it's going to get Devois back running on that ankle. I know he had an ankle injury at the end of last year, towards the end of it. So I think it's really going to be good for everybody.
Well, I know Arkansas, the thing that I took away is they feel really good about their weight, the off-season program. I think they feel real good about the senior leadership that they're going to have, a lot of experience. Outside of seniors, there's a lot of guys on this football team that's played a lot of football. I think Cameron Curl is going to be one of the older guys on the team. I know they're going to have high expectations for Sosa, Geem, TJ Smith, Briston Guidry. This is a very senior or veteran savvy defensive line. And I think, with the linebacker, that's the most intriguing to me, Demetrius, is how will Bumper Poole, how will he be able to step in there, in the absence and, graduation of Dre Greenlaw next to Scooter. That's going to be a spot I think is going to be real interesting throughout spring ball to see who steps to the forefront. Andrew Parker's a guy that I think as a redshirt freshman, he has a chance to come in. This is a guy that came down to Arkansas and Texas. Is that a position that you really are going to have your eye on?
Definitely. Linebacker is going to be key for us next year. And like you said, losing Dre Greenlaw is going to be a big hit to us. But I think, Chief kind of alluded to it in the interview where we were talking about that defensive lineman, that they over-recruited at that position, but he thinks it's really going to pay dividend. And I think you're going to really see the beginning of that this year. They're going to make it a lot easier for those young guys like Bumper Poole to really make some plays because those guys that we have in the trenches are really going to be double teamed next year. I think we're really stout, and we have that extra girth up there that we hadn't had in a while. So I think we're going to be able to get a 3-man rush next year that's going to allow those linebackers to maybe go to a 4 or get an extra DB back there playing that nickel position. So it's going to be interesting. I think Chief is definitely going to have a lot more flexibility with the guys that he has on the field. I think they're going to be a lot more diverse and have a lot more versatility to them.
Talking about being diverse and having versatility, the addition of Kenny Ingram, Kenny's has some coaching ties with Steve Caldwell, who's going to be ironically defensive ends coach. Then he ties into also Coach Chavis, which Coach Chavis ties into Coach Cooper. So the versatility, I think, that is going to be brought on the defensive side of the ball is going to be something that's really going to be impressive. They've got some pieces to work with, some experience. There's no substitute for experience, but we caught up with new defensive line coach Kenny Ingram and sat down with him, and we're going to let you hear what Coach Ingram has to say, and then we'll come back more and analyze what we anticipate to fans need to be on watch out for about a week from today. Spring ball, year number 2 under Coach Mo and his staff. It gets started, but here's Kenny Ingram, and we'll be back in a minute. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479.
Forward to man, just being able to take advantage of the depth and the experience that we have in that position. But just, I'm taking this time just to get to know them as young men.
Being from Auburn, and being in the SEC, how will that help you, as far as recruiting and just being able to adjust into this conference?
Man, just it helped me by having an awareness of just what it's like to be in this league, what it takes to be in this league. And, some people think, by this being my first on the field coaching experience in the SEC that I lack SEC experience. But when you're a part of any program in the SEC, man, you got experience because it takes everyone. It takes everyone a part of every program to be successful in this business, in this league. And so just having that awareness of being able to see how it operates, I think that would serve me well.
Coach wants to have an emphasis and a footprint in the state of Tennessee with you being a former high school coach at Melrose, being from the Memphis area, Is that something that you guys talked about,
Yes. Said it, man, and that was one of the things that kind of helped give me this opportunity is just my connections and my experience in Memphis. I'm born and raised from Memphis. All my family still lives in Memphis, and I love the city. I love where I'm from, and yes, we had extended conversations about just the city of Memphis and what it means to this program.
Coach at Arkansas State, defensive coordinator at Memphis, Cincinnati made a stop. When you go out and recruit to a particular position that you're coaching, what is it that you look for in the football players that you put a lot of time into?
Man. The thing that I look for most of all is the person. I mean, it's a lot of talented people here. In recruiting, but it's more than just the talent. Now, let's not get it wrong. We want to recruit the best talent. We want to recruit the best talent that has the best personality fit for a program, and that's going to be best for that program. That's going to be best for that kid. So the things that I look for in recruiting, I look for, I try to get to know the person, the kid, and everyone that's involved with him, everyone that's connected to him, everyone that's touching him. I try to, it's not just the kids you're recruiting all those people who are involved in him. And I just take a different approach to it because really probably my best experience that I think that gives me my best quality in recruiting is the fact that I've been a head high school coach. And to see recruiting from that side and from that standpoint, which gives me a lot, which defines a lot of how I recruit kids. And so that's what I tend to lean on, the experience of me as a head high school coach, having kids being recruited, and just that process.
Man, it's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Friday edition. It's our A edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk. So throughout the show, Demetrius and I will be breaking down yesterday's assistant coach media availability, and we'll let you hear in particular certain coaches. Next up here shortly, we're going to have Coach Ron Cooper. I'm also defensive backs coach at the University of Arkansas. We caught up with Ron here shortly, and just got his take on Devin Bush, Greg, how his movement, just how spring ball is going to be going. We'll play his audio here shortly, but I want to go over to Demetrius, and Coach Ingram yesterday made a good point. We've heard Chad talk about it. Being a high school coach, and I've also heard Jeff Traylor, Mark Smith, the one thing that these guys have in common is they were all high school head football coaches that had to deal with Division I coaches, position coaches, head coaches. How has this translated to Arkansas? And really, this has to be nothing but a positive for this program going forward to have 3 or maybe possibly 4 on staff.
Yeah, I think it just makes us more relatable from a recruiting standpoint. I think these high school coaches know what high school kids like. Sometimes being a college coach and dealing with an older group of kids, you kind of think this is the way you have to treat them, but they don't understand the maturity level is totally different from high school to college. So I think it just gives them an advantage in the sense of knowing what these kids like and knowing what appeals to them.
The thing that just continues to amaze me and really impress me, I should say, is their ability to build relationships. Not almost to a man, each and every coach, when you interview one of them, relationships. It all comes back to that one word, and it has to be a tribute to your head football coach. Chad mentioned relationships from day one, December 7th. I'll never forget it, 2018. he stepped to that podium, and relationships was something that he said his staff would be able to do in the recruiting world. And Demetrius, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, he comes in with a top class. I mean, how impressive is that when your head coach can say something, hire a staff, and they go out and carry out that vision and bring in some of the talent. Now, I know you're talking about a 2-10, 0-8 SEC year, but what they were able to do in the relationships part of getting better players to change this culture, I mean, isn't that pretty impressive?
Yeah, you know, I think it just really shows the fortitude that Chad Morris has. You know, he's really been to this. He's been through this process, you know, not necessarily at this level, but when you go to SMU and you rebuild their program, no, they didn't go to any big bowl games, or no, they didn't win a national championship, but to take a almost Ivy League school and get those type of players in a school like SMU, where it's really hard. SMU is not an easy school to get it accepted into and be a student athlete. And not only get that, we know sometimes the best athletes don't make the best grades. So for him to make SMU that type of competitive team within that conference, I think it speaks volumes. And I think you're really just seeing that kind of transition over to Arkansas. You know, yes, we did go 2-10, but you're really seeing it from a recruiting standpoint, and the relationships that he has built in the past, being a coach at SMU and having to recruit so rigorous in that Texas area. You know, we talked about it, I want to say 2 weeks ago or a week ago, where, you know, he was the only coach in the state of Texas to have strictly Texas kids. So I think that itself speaks to the type of recruiter that not only Chad is, but the type of guys that he likes to go get. They're very like-minded in the sense of recruiting that he has.
Well, I know a guy that went out and got two studs in the defensive backfield. And Ron Cooper played a major role in getting defensive back Devin Bush out of Egna Carr, and also Greg Brooks has tremendous ties in the New Orleans area. We caught up with Coach Cooper in the assistant availability, talked about his room and spring ball as well, and here's what Coach Cooper had to say.
Knowledge of the guys understanding the scheme, understanding the calls. You know, there's their second time in the system, and just them understanding a little bit more. You know, being able to make better decisions, being able to play with faster, play with better technique, and it's their second time around doing it. You know,
some of the guys like Miles Mason, talk about his growth.
Yeah.
Joe
Shea.
Both
of those two guys, you know, were two freshmen last year that we played. You know, they didn't redshirt. They played in probably eight games. Played special teams a lot, but at least they've got their feet wet a little bit. They've had a chance to compete in an SEC football game. It'll be their first spring, but they won't be hearing the scheme for the first time. But I'm extremely excited about watching those two start spring off and just having them go out there and just, you know, them understanding what cover 8 is and not just saying, hey, 8 is this and this and this and that. We still got to teach the fundamentals, still got to get better, but it isn't the first time they ever heard it.
Cameron Curl, how much will you lean on him? Being the older guy in the room, having played so much football, how much will you lean on him?
Well, I'm expecting Cam to have probably the best spring. You know, he understands the scheme. He understands it already. Now we can really hone in on just technique and fundamentals and footwork and understanding what the offense is trying to do, understanding a little bit more about route combinations. What do they want to do when they're 3-by-1, 2-by-2, two backs in the backfield? It's time for him to move forward that way.
Now you got some younger guys coming in. Devin Bush, Greg Brooks, those type of guys. How will they impact, you know, once they get to campus? I know they won't be here spring. Greg's here, but Devin, well, they both are here.
Yeah, Greg and Devin are both here. Yeah, you know, we got to get them taught. You know, it's going to be a young group, and we got to get them taught. And they'll learn a combination of nickel and learn a combination of corner, but they're important to us, just like the other guys that are coming in August. We're going to need all of them to chip in and play, and we're just looking forward to getting them better. We got to start off technique and fundamentals, make sure everything's squared away that way, but we're looking forward to getting them better.
How about the
Arkansas defensive back coach Ron Cooper. You know, Demetrius, Coach Cooper has a very interesting room. And what I mean by that is it's a combination of experience, youth, and then those middle guys. You know, guys like Buster, guys like Jarquez McClellan. You know, then that youth. You talk about Devin and Greg and Then you talk about experience in Cameron. Talk about how impressed and how important will this room be. There's Joe Fouché, Miles Mason. Joe's your guy. Talk about how excited you are for those two. Because I always felt last year, Demetrius, those two true freshmen should have gotten a couple more reps due to the circumstances, and for if not for anything, for the process of building for the future.
I agree. There were times that I thought Joe and Miles should have got a little bit more PT, but I think, Chad Morris being who he is was really trying to give guys the benefit of the doubt. And Santos Ramirez and getting them those extra reps, he was really trying to build that NFL resume. And I think from a confidence standpoint, I think Chad Morris also kind of dialed him back to not get those. Sometimes you can be in the right position but not have the help around you, and it can kind of put you in bad position. So I think Chad Morris also knew that, and I think from a confidence standpoint, he kind of dialed him back. But I think this year, Chief is really going to give him a lot more responsibility. I think they're going to be very critical pieces to that defense, especially the defensive back position. That was probably the weak link of the defense last year. So they're definitely going to have to step up this year for Arkansas to have a better season than 2-10.
I know some people in a position that has to step up, and we're going to let you hear from assistant wide receivers coach Justin Stepp here shortly about his room, and then we're going to follow up Coach Stepp, and it's time to talk a little fast and sporty. Arkansas yet has another big game, and I mean a big game. This is almost to the point, Demetrius, a must-win.
Yeah, it is must win.
5-8. I mean, if you have any hope of holding just that bubble, you better win this game tomorrow in Bud Walton and start to protect home court. But following Coach Stepp, we're going to talk with Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. We'll find out what Scotty has to say about the keys that Arkansas has to achieve to get this bad taste, this losing streak out of their mouth. It's on the Hill. Here's Coach Stepp, and we'll be back.
And then having the guys that we got back, we got some guys healthy finally. Coylin Jackson's finally healthy, man, and really excited to see him and see what he can bring to the table. And I think my group's a lot closer than it's ever been. We got good relationships with the kids, and the kids got good relationships with us, and the kids are bought into the culture. But the number one thing for me is the competitiveness, man. When you got competition in a room, especially at receiver, and people know that they can't have a bad day because somebody will take their job, it makes everybody in the room better.
Talk about Jordan Jones. How much will you lean on him, Coach? He's kind of the older guy in the room, but how much will you expect from him to kind of help out the younger guy?
Yeah, Jordan and I have had that conversation. I only have one senior in Deion Stewart, and then Jordan and Davion. Those are my next two oldest guys, man. So it's my challenge to them is, hey, man, listen, it's time for you to. It's not about somebody else leading this group. It's time for you to step up. It's time for you to be the leader and take that leadership role. So really excited for him to have that opportunity and for him to bring it every single day. Being consistent and his work ethic and being a leader for our group.
Having Trey and Shamar, two guys that you coveted, all season, to have them here and go through spring ball. What do you think that will do? You said having competition. What does that do to that room when you look over and have two freshmen that are hungry to get playing time?
Well, I think the number one thing is I think all those guys respect, the work ethic those guys have brought in here the first 3 weeks they've been here. Well, I guess it's mid-January. It's for our older guys and the guys that have been here to see how hard those kids work. I mean, Shamar and Trey are two of the most competitive people I've ever been around. It don't matter if you're playing a game of horse or what you're doing, man. Those two jokers are trying to win. And we got really good competitive kids in there now. So, and it's just like I said a minute ago, man. When you got competition and you can't have a bad day because somebody's going to take your job, but at the same time, man, pushing each other and helping each other. It ain't about, hey, man, I'm trying to win a job. I ain't trying to help you. That's been the great thing for me as the position coach is to see those older kids be so towards Shamar and towards Trey and really putting an arm around them and helping them out because, man, it's hard. I can't imagine. It was hard for me to leave to go to college in August when I did it. I couldn't imagine doing it in January in the middle of the year. So to see those older guys really take those guys underneath their wings, man, and help them out has been really cool.
Coming in a year ago, Coach, you've done quite the recruiting. What have you learned, in the SEC that you can take out on the recruiting, and sell to the kids?
Yeah, well, first off is that we're recruiting against. I mean, this is the best of the best, So kind of like the same thing we tell our kids, man. You can't have a bad day. You can't have a bad day in recruiting. If you ain't talking to them, somebody is. They're hearing from somebody every day. So it's just being relentless, man, and just building those relationships, and you hope that your relationship is good enough to give you that chance in the end. I think the unique thing about the University of Arkansas is getting kids here. If we can get a kid here, I mean, Shamar and Trey will tell you too. I mean, those two suckers put me off 2 trips in a row, and then they finally got over here, and it was enough to where okay, hey, I liked it. I'm gonna go back, and then they came back and checked it out, and obviously everything worked out, man. But I think building the relationship, and Coach Brad Scott at Clemson told me one time, he said, man, you can't ever be naive enough to think the kid ain't going to tell you no. But if he's going to tell you no, it's going to be the hardest. You make it the hardest thing that kid's ever had to do. And I've been told no before. But I mean, recruiting in this league, I mean, you gotta take your game to a whole nother level every day. I mean,
top 25 recruiter.
Welcome back. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our A edition as we get you guys ready for all things Arkansas athletics related over the weekend. And real quick, want to give a shout out before we continue on with our special guest, Lindsay and Associate, with a location in Fayetteville and office location also too in Rogers. The Baymont Hotel is located at South 35 Shiloh Drive, and Locomotion located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall, and our newest sponsor, Corey Beck Custom Painting as well. But we want to move on and get this Fastest 40 talk, and as always, we're bringing in our good buddy, the one and the only, Scotty Borland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Scotty, welcome to OTH, my man.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. Pretty excited you guys got Corey back on board.
Hey, we thought we'd get a piece of the Final Four. We can't have a piece of the gold trophy. We got to get a player, so what better way to get some sponsorship? But Scotty, I want to talk to you about this game coming up tomorrow night. Arkansas goes on the road, plays a very uninspired brand of defense. It just seemed like they never could get on track, and it just, that first 2.5 minutes, the game was pretty much a done deal. Talk about what can this team do to get this taste out of their mouths, because it just seems like, this thing could go either way tomorrow night.
Yeah, it really could. Me and you were talking a little bit before Arkansas's football assistants came in. Texas A&M now, who looks like one of the more lifeless teams in the league, outside of Vanderbilt, they've won 3 out of 4 in conference play now, just kind of out of nowhere. And so they're playing a little bit better. I think their only loss in that spin was to South Carolina. I could be wrong on that, but a lot of Arkansas's problems is they just offensively they lack so much firepower. I mean, if teams take Dan out of the equation like Auburn did the other night, then Arkansas's guards are just kind of scrambling a little bit. And when you get a 4 for 29 from 3-point range from your 2 best shooters, like happened on Wednesday, and you're never going to win games that way. They've got to find a way to I guess manufacture some points and just be a lot more efficient on offense. I don't know if they can necessarily do that, but just as far as on the defensive side of the floor, they got to get connected like they were during the 4-game SEC win streak, and you never know. Like playing a team like Texas A&M might be just what they need. Because Texas A&M's not a great team by any means. So they could surprise us and come out and play well tomorrow night. But I'm just not sure what to expect anymore.
Are you surprised, Scotty, in which this team has been able to defend the 3-point shot? I think we were talking at the Smith Center yesterday, they're either 13th or 14th defending it. That has to be a very alarming rate. And it just seems that as the season and conference has gone on, teams are starting to shoot even at a higher clip. Is that concerning if you're the staff?
Yeah, it's definitely concerning. I don't think Mike's had a team, I think since his second season at Arkansas that's been this poor shooting the 3, and I'm not certain on what the defensive numbers are as far as defending the 3 over his tenure, but it's not good. I looked at KenPom yesterday. Arkansas was 13th in the league and shooting the 3 and 13th in the league defending it. And that's an awful combination to have, especially when Mike thinks that they're still in the hunt for something, although he doesn't know exactly what that is. That's not a great combination to have. And the game plan the other night against Auburn wasn't complicated. Like you knew that Auburn was going to launch a bunch of 3s, and you knew you had to run them off the line. and they get up 33 threes and make over half of them.
Right.
So something's there's a disconnect there a little bit. So we'll see. I mean, we talked to Mike in about an hour, so we'll see if we get anything insightful or enlightening in that regard. We'll see.
Talking about getting information and a lot of quality information, I thought was yesterday. You know, Scotty, we did have availability with all the assistant coaches. You know, out of your talks with the assistants, what did you take out of the availability that we had with those guys?
Yeah, so yesterday I kind of went into those interviews knowing kind of what I was going to angle for. The Snag Crew slogan or title or whatever Justin Stepp and Trey Knox have come up with, that kind of caught my eye over the last month or so. And you know, I was talking to Joe Craddock and Justin Stepp, and I think they really want to get back to making the offensive side of things fun again. And I mean, that goes back to Justin Stepp kind of latching on to that Snag Crew thing that Trey Knox came up with. And then also in practice, you know, I think he didn't give me all the details. Neither one of the guys gave me all the details, but you know, they're kind of incentivizing big plays, you know, in the passing game, things like that. I know when both guys were at SMU, they had this deal where if an offensive player made a big play in the passing game, you know, they'd have a graduate assistant take a baseball bat over to whoever the player was that made a big play and just let him mimic hitting a home run. So, you know, they're trying to up the competition a little bit, and I think they have with the new crop of receivers that they brought in, mixed with a little bit of experience like Mike Woods and Jordan Jones and Davion Warren and those guys. They obviously know they weren't nearly as explosive as they needed to be last year. I think they were second, so they were next to last in the league last year offensively in terms of possessions that finished in scores of 20-plus yards. So I mean that's obviously pretty alarming. They want to try to right that this year, and I think just giving the guys something to compete for and something that they can kind of latch on to and have fun with. I think that's pretty big. So that's kind of what I took from the two offensive coaches I talked to yesterday.
In talking with the chief, Mark Smith, Kenny Ingram, also to Ron Cooper, the thing that jumped out to me is they're going to create competition. They feel like, I think they all, to a man, understand that maybe they're going to have the experienced side of the ball, but I think they feel like they have more trust in this football team. Scooter Harris was a guy that, you know, I really feel like they feel good about. Cameron Curl. Talk about, you know, the competition that will be built and created on the defensive side of the ball with all that experience, yet still, Scotty, a lot of young and hungry incoming freshmen that want to get on the field.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think you're really seeing that, you know, along the defensive front. You know, you brought in a lot of talented defensive linemen, especially in the last two classes. Like you even go back to guys like Nick Fullwater and Isaiah Nichols. I'm curious to see how those guys are going to fit in during the spring. And you bring a guy like McTelvin again back, and then the defensive lineman you just signed. I mean, there's lots of competition that's going to be going on there. And you know that's always great to have, because you know if the guy is slacking one day at practice, it's obviously it's going to click in his mind that if I don't bring it, then I'm not going to see the field. And obviously nobody on that roster wants to be sitting on the sideline. But you know it was huge that they got Scooter back. I think he's going to kind of anchor, a position that Arkansas is still, you know, I guess kind of looking for that second steady option alongside him. And, you know, I heard Ron Cooper interview yesterday. He wasn't pleased, obviously, with the way the secondary played last year, and he would have graded them out at a D as far as their performance goes. I mean, you got like Miles Mason and Joe Boucher, and like Cam Curl, like you mentioned, and just a bunch of young guys that are, like you said, they're pretty hungry. I'm just curious to see. Yeah, I want to see the competition. I want to see who kind of rises to the top there, especially on the defensive side of things, because they've got to get. And offense can be great, but if you can't stop anybody, like it's kind of a lost cause.
Talking with Scotty Borland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, covers the fastest 40 for Coach Anderson, as well as all Razorback sports for us here on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk. Got about a minute left and want to flip back to tomorrow's home game, big game, Arkansas A&M. Give me one player of influence for the Razorbacks tomorrow, in your opinion.
Yeah, I want to see Mason Jones string. I want to see him play a lot more consistently than he has been. You know, he put up 30 against Mississippi State, and he scores in single digits. You know, the other night at Auburn, he seems like, I've written this before, that he's been arguably Arkansas's most hit or miss guard throughout the entire season, and just hasn't been able to string 4, 5, 6 straight solid shooting games together. And you know, he's been a little turnover prone too. You know, he played a big role in Arkansas winning at Texas A&M, the Open Conference, but he didn't get a shot going until really late when they really needed it. But I just want to see him bounce back, because I don't. You know, Mason, you can oftentimes wonder where his head is sometimes. So we'll see how that goes, but I think they need another solid game out of Mason.
All right, my man. Hey, love all the info. I'll catch up with you as I'm headed over as soon as we conclude today's On the Hill segment of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk. But as always, thanks for taking time out here on OTH, my man.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'll see you soon, Pat.
That was Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette giving us the 411 Demetrius on all what he's looking for, both either in the football, spring ball coming up a week from today and tomorrow night's Texas A&M Arkansas home game in Bud Walton Arena. In a big game, but we caught up with Coach Mark Smith. You know, we're going to let you hear everything Mark has to say, because it's pretty interesting stuff. Just the brand, what he's going to be looking for in his room, and also, too, what he looks for when he's out on the recruiting trail. And then we'll come back and close this thing out. Here's Coach Smith. It's on the Hill. It's the A.
And their fundamentals and their technique. We're not interested in trying to win spring ball. Sometimes you can get into the competition and get heated up that way, which is good, but we really want to see them improve their fundamentals and their technique. We know if they do those two things, we'll be better in the fall.
Looking at Jarquez with Clever, and those guys busted. Ryan moves on. Will those be some of the guys that maybe you lean on to help Greg and Devin, get acclimated to the
Well, Jarquez, he started 9 games for us this past year. He's got the most experience of all the guys coming back, so he's kind of taken over the leadership role within the group of corners. And so we're definitely going to lean on him that way, and his experience is going to help. And he's put the young guys around his arm and said, hey, come follow me. And I like that. He's a good example of how to do things the right way. Buster the same way. He's got a lot of confidence that he's gained from the first year to right now. So, when we go out to first day, those will be the first 2 guys that run out there. And then we really expect, Day Bishop to come in and to really, come into his own now after redshirt this past year to come in. I'm excited to really watch him play. And then Devin Bush is going to be right in there with him, with those guys. So it's good to have Devin and Greg here both. We're going to work Greg as some nickel and some corner, and then just see how those guys develop over the course of 15 practices.
How does that help the room, having 2 guys of that caliber? And when you guys went out and recruited them, what was it that you saw in Greg and Devin that you coveted so much for this program?
Well, that was really Coach Cooper really had to lead on those guys and his familiarity with New Orleans, and then it was just staying steady with them throughout the recruiting process. That's something that Coach Morris emphasizes, that we really want to, just be the same person from the first day all the way to the end. And it paid off with both of those guys. Flipping Greg at the end, Coach Cooper and I went out there, 3 straight weeks and saw those guys. And so we ended up flipping Greg at the end. And then Devin was a guy that we got on him early. Then he released the top 3 and we weren't in it. But we just stayed on him. And then as things worked out, he reached back out and said, hey, are you guys still interested in me? We said, sure we are. But I think it was just staying steady throughout the process with him and then getting back involved with him late, but just being the same people that we were from the very first all the way to the end with him, and then having them both here early is really critical. Great for their development.
You've been here a year, had a chance to recruit for you. What have you found, that is the best brand for this year, for you guys out on the recruiting trail?
I think that obviously there's a great deal of energy around our program right now in terms of recruiting. Being able to put together the 2019 class that we did was remarkable, and I think the 2020 class is just going to build off of that. There's a great deal of excitement when we go out into schools and we talk to recruits. People know what we're doing, especially in terms of recruiting, and they know that you're going to see those results on the field here in the next several seasons, and then it's going to just keep building and building and building. It's like that big snowball that we're just kind of pushing on down the hill, and it starts out small, and then that thing is huge by the time it gets down to the bottom. So that's kind of the analogy that we're working on, and we want guys that want to come and be a part of a turnaround and something special, and an opportunity to be the big face on the mural when it's all painted up. And so that's appealing to a lot of guys. There's a great sense of urgency in terms of recruiting that way. So we're looking for guys that want to come be a part of that.
When you go out and you recruit, what is it that you, Coach Mark Smith, specifically looks at in your players?
Well, I want guys that love playing football. That's the first thing. I mean, guys that just can't live without it. I mean, guys that just this is what I do. It's who I am, and I just love playing ball. And then we want guys that want to be Arkansas guys that got to fit, the culture that's within this program. So we want guys that want to come in that have high character, that are going to behave right. They want to get an education. They want to graduate from a great university. So those things are important, and the guys that just football is everything to them in their life. So that's what we really look for.
Welcome back. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, as we let you hear from defensive backs coach Mark Smith on just the brand, how they've been received out on the recruiting trail. Also, to his excitement for Devin, Bush, Greg Brooks, his entire room. Talked about Jarquez McClellan, Buster, and Demetrius. This guy has the room and the potential. If they can come through the maturation at a rapid pace and go up a little quicker than most SEC corners and D-back, this group has a chance to be special in next year and years to come.
Yeah, we're going to need them to be special. Defensive back is a special position in the SEC, and it's by far one of the toughest positions to play with the type of athletes.
Be cocky to play.
You do. You got to have a type of swagger. You got to have a physicality about yourself, and you got to be
and a short-term memory.
Definitely, because there's going to be plays made on both sides. So I just think he can go find guys with those mentality and like he said, love to play football and can understand the scheme. And again, going back to what I said earlier, that defensive line, we all know if you have a stout defensive line that you can get a three-man rush on a full line, it's going to be tough for offenses to really stop your defense. It's going to really give you more help on that back end. So I think, again, if we can have a solid, decent secondary, our defensive line should more than make up for it.
I can tell, I agree with you 100%, but, in meeting Kenny Ingram, the new defensive line coach, I have a real good vibe that those young men will gravitate to Kenny, and I think he's going to have them, as they say, bringing it up out of the mud. Ain't that what they say nowadays? Coming up out of the mud.
Some savages. There's some guys over there that they have the physicality, but he's good. He's going to be able to relate to them in a way that I think some of the former coaches maybe haven't had the experience on being able to talk and relate to these guys in such a manner that I think Kenny can. And I think guys like Sosa, again, are really going to benefit from being in his room and being around that type of guy that really has been to Auburn, seeing these SEC caliber players has got to go around the conference. So I think Kenny's going to be a great addition to the University of Arkansas.
Real quick before we get out, and make a note, Arkansas's ladies softball women Razorbacks, they got out of Bogle Stadium yesterday, moved into 8-1 with a 8-1 victory. Also to the Omaha 6-3 winners over the USC Trojans out in California yesterday to move on to 4-0. That's going to wrap it up real quick. Want to give a shout out to all our sponsors and a thank you. Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. The Baymont Hotel, it's located at 735 South Shiloh Drive. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall, and our newest sponsor, Corey Beck Custom Paintings. I want to give a shout out and thank you to our sponsors, as this would not be possible. I want to give you a thank you to our guest, Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, also to my producer, Demetrius Johnson, known as Demigod in these parts, and to myself, to you, and from On the Hill Sports Talk. You guys have a blessed one.